Aye.
Oi, oi, oi.
Alrighty. What do we got? How's the week been?
This week feels like a lot longer. Today feels like the second Friday in a row.
Is that bad or good? I thought people that Friday was like you think
No,
another short day or
I was in Friday mood yesterday and I'm still in Friday mood today, which is kind of cool. But yeah, this week was just really busy. I feel like I got a lot done. So
Hi
I'm
guys.
thankful for it. Hey, Florian.
yeah, Florian. Yay. Congratulations.
Hey.
Florian got a good for Florian's father.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but the kid is out camping today with the wife. So,
So you got time to
Brand new
join
camper.
us. Yeah, I'm looking forward to thank you for sharing your latest what do we call it? Blog post? Do they still call them that these days?
yes, so or AI fodder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. A little bit of kibble for the AI, throwing it out there.
But actually, that's a pet theory of mine. When I do Gemini deep research, I quite often stumble on very niche blogs. Maybe it's the stuff I ask, but I wonder if there's some search engine optimization for AI going on already.
Oh, I'm sure there must be. I'm sure there must be. There was that thing. Actually, I want to have a maybe we'll have a little sidebar chat somewhere about the switch you can throw in Cloudflare, whether or not it works, but let's assume it does, to tell it not to let the major bot crawlers crawl your site, or either do or don't, or pay attention to that robots.txt file that I don't think anyone ever paid attention to. I think that was just a rug. Um, yeah, because I guess I can see both sides of it to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in the early days of this current hype, there was this experiment of some guy who like hid stuff in the source code of his website, and then the AI crawler would pick up very flattering details about his career that he never would officially put on the website because it would be way too cheesy. But the AI still picked it up because it was somewhere in the source code.
Yeah. This is yeah, it's a plot line for a middling political thriller or something. Nice. Cool. All right, well, it's another side projects edition. These are going great. I'm like super looking forward to them. Um, somehow I feel like this particular structure has lured my old friend Scott Patterson back into being a regular, which I'm super excited about.
No, it's just my life has calmed down, so I have time now.
Yeah, that's great. And
And it's fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been great to hear your um Pattersonian reflections. Um, okay, so we do have three side projects, and in order of submissions. So Anushka, you were first. Super
All
excited that
right.
you're back.
I've been attending regularly ever since I've presented, I feel. And every time I think it's been a delight to have different forms of project and different people present them as well, both new and old, I feel.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Okay, do you wanna start?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll just share my screen. Um,
Just to let you know, your connection is a little bit wonky.
okay.
Like a video
Is it
lag.
visible?
The audio seems okay, but there's a bit
Ah.
of a video. The video might be struggling.
Okay. Okay. I think it should be better now.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So I would like to talk about this thing that I've been doing for a bunch of years. It's called sketchnoting, and it's a method that I found out of taking down notes or taking down patterns or understanding patterns for things that people talk about or in lectures or in presentations or conversations. And I've realized that it can be used as a really powerful tool if you bring your, like, if you understand how, if you might align with things like sketchnoting, or if you're a visual thinker like me. So I'll explain how it works. So, like, a simple definition for it is visual note taking, where you record your thoughts or others' thoughts through illustrations, symbols, structures, and texts. And the way it works for me is since I was a kid, I think I had more of a visual memory. Like, if I had to understand mathematical formulas, I would much rather remember the page of the textbook instead of understanding the actual formula and how it works. And I didn't realize that until quite late. And then I realized that maybe the visual memory that I have could be put into use in some way. And how might I do that? I can do that in terms of trying to understand patterns of talks or patterns of thoughts and patterns of patterns in a system and how they interconnect with each other. And the way things work for me is that I also associate an object or a visual as a door, or like a kind of like a portal to unlock like associated words or associated information to that object. And this is the way my mind functions. So this is how I try to make it work in a setting where I would like to try to simplify more complicated thoughts. The first time I was introduced to this concept was during RSD talks, which is talks about systemic design, where people are invited from all walks of life, and it's a conference for systems thinking. And that's where I realized that you can also contribute to the talks and to take down the talks in the form of sketch notes. And these were the first 3 sketch notes that I ever made. And from this time onwards, I realized that this is a power that I had, and I should probably exercise it more and more often. And these were talks about you looking at languages and languages as a hidden constraint in design, looking at anxiety and how it can be a wicked problem, and then looking at embodied energy and how it can transform into different, it manifest itself into different ways. So, and then I started looking at using this. I started practicing again and again and try to develop my own style of taking down notes. And if you can see, this was a sketch note that I made for a public policy festival, which was organized in the city of Pune. And it was about sustainable growth and urban resilience. And there were 4 people who were having a conversation, and I tried to separate them to a certain degree and their conversations and thoughts in the 4 different corners of the page, and started taking down tiny doodles. Okay, like, I tried to associate uh, growth with a tiny sapling, and let's say then I started associating it with different words, like, okay, saplings also have roots. So if I had to look at the root of the problem, what is the root of the problem that hinders sustainable growth and resilience, and what enables it to grow? So we can look at things like, okay, how do we scale pilots, or how do we scale up pilot projects so they are more closer towards the growth of the sapling, and more of the root problems are that what is like we do not look at we look at tend to look at problems in isolation. For example, social problems, financial problems, climate problems, and then accordingly I started to associate different words with their conversations itself, and accordingly so and so forth. I worked with other talks as well, which was about looking at public policy and design, and this was a conversation again among 5 different people, and they were talking about how public policy and like they could be as simple as looking at a project of designing a bus and how it could have systemic implication on looking at public welfare, and because it's associated again with public transport. So then I drew a bus and I was like, okay, what was their idea when they were designing a bus? How we look at how do public and private services operate public transportation in different cities? How might we look at new opportunities, or how might we relook at new problems that weren't looked at before? How do we look at interactions that happen? So then the like these were the different ways I was trying to associate things, and then there were sometimes these really thought-provoking statements that people told, and then people were talking about how do you work with a network of problems. So that was like a portal for me to understand more and inquire more about understanding the systemic part of looking at policy design. So like so on and so forth, I started working with different types of sketch notes. This was the first one is looking at role playing in during research, and it was a talk by a professor. And then the next one was looking at women farmers engaged in cotton and cotton harvesting in India. So, and then this was something which was much more crude, which was just notes that I was taking during a lecture on how to grow fungi and how to grow mushrooms. So, and these are the ways I realized that, okay, I can manifest it in different forms. So now my current project or my current point of inquiry is using sketchnoting as a tool of futures thinking, because it's so oriented around fun, around non-linearity of things, and it makes things much more visual and much more easier to remember. How might we play with it where we try to bring in multiple situations and multiple scenarios together and try to piece a story around it? How might we build different worlds using sketchnoting? Or how might we speculate new ideas, speculate new projects, and how might we connect these dots and interconnect these questions and inquiries and get into one cohesive thought and answer? Or how might we look at systems thinking or wicked problems as a whole, where there are problems that continuously keep evolving, but so does sketchnoting, or so does the activity of coming together and writing down these thoughts on a massive sheet of paper, maybe. And one direction of it was how might we include it with the existing tools of futures thinking. For example, the futures wheel or the cone of futures, where we include it and inculcate it into the sketch note, and we just doodle around it. I feel that this as an exercise brings in people from all different aspects of life, age, geography, and you can come together and communicate much more efficiently. So all in all, it's not just it's not a product per se, but it is a process to reach a particular destination, I would say. And I think there is a lot of scope to use sketchnote as a powerful tool. And I think I'll also bumped into the prompt cards by Julian in a third space in Bangalore, in the city of Bangalore. So that's just a photo of from there, and that's it. That's what I would like to end with. And I think that as a person who is very much involved in futures thinking, I would love to figure out the potential that sketchnoting has in this subject. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great. Great. So yeah, so now it's just our 20 minutes of discussion and reflection. Any thoughts or
Anushka, again, great presentation, lots of ideas. I've always loved seeing those people that kind of draw conversations, those videos of people doing exactly that. I was fascinated by that, and I suppose that could be automated itself. That would be kind of cool with AI, that it would actually draw like that. But if you recall Eduardo's presentation last week on toast or toast, and how much I like the stickers notion and this idea of visually connecting this super boring thing about meeting notes, essentially, right? Not his product, the notion of doing something in meeting notes. I'm so sick of them. But it really came alive with these stickers. And for me, it was all visual. I mentioned that I think young people would like it because, young people could almost organize their thoughts by just seeing all the stickers in kind of groups, and then they would know like what the conversation was about, but just by looking at the stickers. And what you're showing reminded me of that, and the idea of having of remembering things through visual cues. I think that would be useful to not only people who are visual thinkers, but just everybody. Everybody's somewhat of a visual thinker at some point. So anyway, great stuff. More food for thought.
My thought on it is like someone similar to you. It's super hard to do this live. And for me, it's always fun to watch those people who are hired to do, like, it's very performative. They're up on stage. They're almost like there's the person signing and then there's the person drawing. And whenever like a really complex concept is floating in the room, everyone's watching like how well do they draw that? Because you have to kind of simplify somewhat. And so I guess that kind of gets at my question about some of the parameters of this. So like if you're doing it live, that's a tough constraint. So I think you could, for what you're describing, you could probably throw that out. And then that suddenly opens up, okay, well, if I have a lot of time, then now I would say the visual vocabulary starts to need to be super well. You can plan a little, but essentially, you're just describing visual explanations of things, and there's like long, rich history of that kind of thing. So I'm kind of curious, but there's a quality to the sketchiness of it. So I think there's a unique space you're describing that's not the really labored but eloquent, visual explanation stuff that's amazing, and then not live. So I think it could work in terms of I do it a lot where I don't limit myself to one piece of paper. So I'll just use like stickies or whatever, so I can rearrange the composition as I'm doing it. Um, and I think I think you just need a simple mechanism to identify this is a connective tissue for, especially in the world building or scenario examples. Like I would just literally put a box around the post-it so like it visually stands out. Like you do that around the copy, right? So just some of those kind of visual cues that this is a thing that is potentially connects to others. So yeah, I think you could break the paper up into, doesn't need to be one piece of paper. And then you're in that time, like, I don't know, I'm curious. You have to just practice it with people. But like if it's done over an hour, yeah, I mean, it seems I see no barrier to doing it. It's really just figuring out a vocabulary that's you're comfortable with, but is also kind of legible. It depends who needs to read it. So like who is the legibility for after the fact. So thanks for sharing.
I can relate to sketching notes during, I will often, if I have to remember someone's birthday, I might just draw like a little flower on my on my hand, and that's the reminder. That's all I need. Here's a little flower. Flower reminds me that I got to pick up flowers for my friend's birthday or something along those lines. And I see how valuable being able to abstract larger concepts into a succinct little sketch. In some cases, you want to write down the bullet list and the cascading order in which someone's points are being made. But sometimes it's a beautiful point is made, and in your mind, and also, are you capable of visualizing? Some people don't have that ability, so it's harder to do that. But for some people, it makes a lot of sense. Another thought, because I always like to overcomplicate things, is be really interesting if there was like an AI tool that listened to the like a conference or something, and just recognized graphic symbols and just showed you the stream of graphic symbols, that when you saw one that resonated with you, you could like swipe it off the tablet and onto the board, onto the shared board, and that could be a collective way of like rapid sketching in that doesn't take away from the concentration and attention required to absorb the information.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this sort of the boundary between the sort of expressive freedom of freehand drawing and having something that has a semantic significance that means something in the sense of having cross linkages or some kind of ongoing meaning based on the kinds of things that you're drawing. Have you ever seen Ken Perlin's Chalk Talk videos? Ken Perlin is a professor at New York University. He like invented shaders and a lot of computer graphics. But a demo that he's been playing with, and he's still working on it at his lab, is this kind of whiteboard where you draw just like that, and it turns into axes. And then you can draw a line on it, and it will turn into the equation for it that you can kind of play with. And to some extent, like Apple is trying to do stuff like that with the math notes stuff in the calculator app on iPad. Work in progress. I think there's a lot more we can do there. But yeah, I'm really interested. I think that's the challenge there, is that it's not neutral, right? Like what you are talking about sort of predetermine the kind of semantics that you want to have within your context. But I think that could be a really interesting. Like, do you draw on paper, or are you drawing with an application? Like, what do you find is the best? It looked maybe like that was on a tablet in some places at least. Do you draw in a place that has like any semantic linkage or zooming? Like what do you do and what works?
So usually I use my iPad and Procreate. It's as simple as that, because you can, of course, just like stickies, you can move things around if things don't make sense, or you can highlight or do whatever. But if I don't have my iPad on me, I usually also just take up a pen and paper. But I've found that digital media is usually much more iterative, and on the go, I can just change things.
That's really that it's cool to find that, yeah, even as you're skilled with the paper, that the iPad is doing a good enough job of the sort of the freeform aspect of it. Have you ever learned or played with 3D? I think it's nowhere near sketchy enough, but I would be really interested in whether you have tried or seen anybody doing sketching or anything with a 3D component. Or I guess Procreate does have an animated context or capability, but it doesn't do quite enough, I think, in terms of integrating it as a sketchy way. I'm just really interested in what comes next in terms of relating those semantics and things like that. But I'm glad to hear that digital works at least.
Yeah. I've used 3D tools in VR, and I've also worked with 3D tools at the same time, but I've never combined the two, where I try to do something like Sketchnote or take down notes for that matter. I've sketched shoes, I've designed stuff in VR, but I've never tried to see if things like note taking, or which seemingly seem that makes much more sense to do it on a 2D medium. Like, I don't think I've ever tried it in 3D, but that is also, I think, an interesting realm to look at. What if there was like a 3D walkthrough through the notes? If, that could be a neat little project to try.
For the last of it. Overall, I think it's a great idea. For myself, I have to think like, well, could you tell me exactly what would be the end goal for this? Would it be like a product that, a product for the masses? Because I start going down that rabbit hole and I start to think like this idea of sketchnoting is fabulous, but then how do you make it easier for anyone to be able to sketchnote, right? Because not everyone has your skill of sketching super fast and being able to like get a concept and translating it into a small image, right? Because that in itself is a skill, right? But a couple points from few people here where it's like if you integrate AI to listen into the conversation and then be able to provide you small illustrations. So all you have to do is kind of like tap and then drop, and then you can write a quick little note right next to the illustration. That becomes more like a viable thing, right? And then I like to kind of like reverse engineer slash hack or jump off of something that's already been done. But great example that Brandel brought up was how Apple has the math taking the math board, right? You write and then things happen in the background and it gives you an answer, right? Similar idea would be killer for this because now you're integrating AI in the background, but the interface is so simple to the point where like you're not thinking about the illustration, but you're just choosing rapid fast, right? You have the skill to translate words into images quickly. Some and AI can do that for a person that doesn't have that skill, right? So from a product standpoint, it's kind of like, yeah, this would be killer, right? For all the visual learners out there. But then when it comes terms to like building it and how to kind of like navigate that world, I start to think like, oh, similar to the math ta or the math table, right? It's listening in the background. It's you tap on the screen, it has, or you write a quick word and it has illustrations, and then you just tap it and then yeah, and it pastes it on like a sticker. And then from there you can continue to explore and expand to get to the point where your final note taking is, right? Super killer. Yeah, I'd be interested in playing with that as well. But I know that I can't illustrate as fast as words come. So yeah, Julian.
Yeah, thanks for that. Made me think of a bunch of things. I think the first thing that came to my mind was yeah, it's a skill like running. So
Mhm.
you got to start out and it's going to hurt at first. But
Yeah.
that's and not saying like that you shouldn't give up on the ways of getting to that, but what are the practices and rituals and exercises that you can do to become a better,
Hmm.
visual sketcher if you're really feeling into that. And I think Anushka has an advantage in that, as she was describing, it's been since childhood or whatever. So that's great. Cool. So then but then what you bring up, sorry, what's your first name?
Mine's Eastman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eastman.
Eastman's your first name. Okay,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Eastman's my first name. Last name is Garcia.
Okay, great. I've been seeing you swirling around, but we've never actually said hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. So the thing I was just building off of what you were saying, yes, also I get that. I think it's a really good prompt to say like, well, what makes this accessible, or provides an opportunity for someone who's like the idea of starting to draw seems so daunting that they're like, it's not even for me. How can you ease into it? Providing like a something that helps along and then building upon what Scott said, which I think is a hell of a weekend brief for a quick project. How can you turn audio, let's say, into iconographic representations? So you're not trying to get it right, you're not trying to get it to do it perfect or
Mhm.
photorealistic, but the idea of like drawing from the noun project is great.
Mhm.
Really, I think it's super cool. I think that would be an
Perfect.
awesome little sketch just to see. I don't know what's going to happen. Also more, it made me think of some images that the artist Chantal Martin once shared, showing her doing visual illustration kind of live at a kind of music club. So a band's playing and she's drawing and it's being projected. So she's an illustrator, very particular kind of line style. And that makes me, the performative aspect of it is really enthralling. So can you find that fun middle ground, even as just an exercise that isn't like, this isn't quite getting the conversation right, but it's like, what are you talking about? This is just,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's, and the machine and me are in a flow state. You can even imagine like, knobs and levers so you can like tune certain things up. Like I want you to go a little bit more iconographic and, versus illustrative. Or
Yeah.
like, oh, take all the saturation out. I just want it black and white. Then it starts out, to me, that starts getting really exciting. Uh,
But you can also like partner with artists to, I mean, from a licensing standpoint, to kind of support artists to be like, hey, draw a bunch of iconography that we can teach this AI on your style. And obviously it's licensed. So therefore, one who's diving into this sketchnoting, they can pick a style that they want, right? That they can resemble with, or at least that could register their ideas with, right? And then from there, it can shape and mold and such. Shape
so
shift.
exciting. Super cool.
Yeah.
Um, Scott, you can have the last word.
Yeah, just building on simple exercises. Like they say, if you want to write, write. So, and like what Julian said, so as someone who can draw, I'm a little loath to like the people who can't draw suddenly saying they can. So, um, maybe one of the common writing, it's like a diaristic thing, is like morning, that exercise morning pages. Like first thing you wake up, you write whatever for 5 minutes. I'm
Hmm.
just thinking of places for you to exercise, like literally practice exercise in different aspects of your life. There's this one now of your futures, but I'm like, prior to that, in terms of figuring out kind of what Eastman's like, what's you, like your hand, your style. I'm like, I would be curious to see you try this when you wake up, when you're telling a story about something that happened or whatever, right? Different times of your life. How different, because if it's like I'm stressed out, maybe the style can be like not so explanatory as much as evocative, for example. So it'd be
Yeah.
fun to watch how you flex your skill based on what it is you're expressing.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I was just going to add a quick one on sketchnoting. About 10 years ago, we did a sketchnoting exercise with envisioning the future of the Moore Foundation. Gordon Moore started Intel, whatever, they bought some money. And the sketchnote ended up in their foyer or the lobby when you walk into the Moore Foundation's office to explain what they do, right? Because what they do is really complicated. They give away money to all these different entities around the world. And it was just kind of cool to see what was a workshop ended up being the best way to explain to people that came to the office what they do. And just building on that, there's a woman that we work with on that workshop, Kate Rutter, that's really all she does is sketchnote workshops. So if you're having a workshop here in San Francisco, you can get a hold of Kate and she'll just hang out and live sketch on the wall with you. which is really cool. Like it's great to work with her. It seems like she's always booked. So maybe that's an extension of the marvelous work that you're doing if you ever want to. And I think you said you're in Pune, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Amazing. I know a bunch. I used to work with ZS, who's based in Pune, and I know they're looking for people like this for workshops. So perhaps there's a connection to be made.
That's nice.
But marvelous work, really beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. That was great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's first person to share twice. Amazing. Which is not that's great. I think it just shows a lot of great energy. Um, okay, so the order would have me go next. It's awkward to introduce yourself. So I'm gonna click I'm gonna share my screen. I think it's this one. All right. Can you guys see that? Okay, cool. Let's start my own timer. So I wanted to talk about Vibrator. But first I'm gonna tell a little bit of a quick story about it. So it started with this project, Ghostwriter. This is like maybe the third or fourth version of it. And the backstory of that is that I was working on that newspaper from an AI future. And in that there had to be, kind of products and product reviews and that kind of thing from the future. And through a variety of just kind of like, you're just in a flow state and you're kind of imagining into a world and that kind of stuff. I wondered what a writing instrument might be in this future, and I started thinking about a typewriter. What would be a typewriter in this world? And the typewriter idea kind of swerved me into stumbling across the industrial design page on IBM's site for the old IBM Selectric typewriter. And the industrial design of that thing is just so gorgeous. I mean, if you fetishize mechanical things and kind of mid-century industrial design, you're going to want one of these things sitting on a table or a poster of it. And they had all the old ads, and one of the ads was essentially trying to um, pitch and sell the idea of having these interchangeable fonts back in the day where people would be like, what is a font? I don't even know what you're talking about. And so, part of that was saying like, look, you could have one font for your business letter, one font for your personal correspondence. And so they're making people understand that there are different ways of representing their world. And I thought like if in 1963, when the typewriter came out, there was AI, they would describe it as different personalities for different kinds of writing. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like I want a typewriter that I can interchange personalities and it's going to collaborate with me and kind of help me write, not by changing a font, but by helping me, with just little nudges in the text I wrote. And this kind of stuff happens if you use if you've ever used VS Code and Copilot and you're writing prose, not writing code, it will try to write prose for you, which is in the best of cases, it's generative. In the typical case, it's just a little bit annoying. And they're always changing how to turn it off, so it's a little bit of a pain. But I was like, suppose you had a tool that was more purposely designed to do that. And that's where kind of Ghostwriter came in. It was basically just like an editor that I built because I wanted to know what it would feel like if I had a tool that kind of wrote for me. And it kind of got like overwrought. Like there's a lot kind of going on with it, but effectively it's a tool. Like if I start writing, I've got all these different ways in which I can have it help me write. So it might, if I click this button, it's going to try to figure out how, based on a very large, it's probably too large for this right now, but a very large corpus of the what they refer to as the RAG, it'll help complete it. So this is meant more for the way I have it set up now. It's meant more for kind of academic writing. So I've just got like all these books that I might typically refer to that it's going to draw from in order to figure out how to say what's next. So this is actually a bad demo of this because it's not um, it's not what I wanted to focus on, but the what I added as on a whim was this kind of vibe mode. And I just thought one day when I was working on it, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have like a mode where it basically it becomes more like a game, a back and forth. And when I was doing user testing, thank you to those of you here who helped me with user testing, people were like, oh, that's I'd rather just have that. Like all the other stuff, maybe you should just focus on that. So I was like, okay, let me just focus on the vibe mode. Um, and that's when I built this vibe writer, which is just basically it was kind of like what happened last week. When who was it? Eduardo shared his thing and we all focused just on the stickers. We were like, hey, maybe it's the stickers. Maybe it's not you found this other thing. And I felt the same thing after that call last week. I was like, maybe I should just focus on the vibrator. Like just strip everything else away or just invert it. And so vibrator, called Pilates for your writer's brain, um, it allows you to essentially just like as an exercise. So this isn't meant to be where you're actually writing your text. It's like the process of writing is the part you're focusing on. So you kind of you can pick a vibe, and so these just to these different kind of silly literary genres and also free writing, which I kind of threw in recently. Hard-boiled detective is the vibe or the genre. The timer is 15 seconds, and let's make the muse short for this. So if you when you click start, it's going to sort of like give a start to a very slightly corny instance of this genre of the hard-boiled detective model. So the rain hammered down on the cracked neon sign is totally corny. Casting flickering shadows of the alley where I found her, a dame with a face that could break hearts. And I knew mine was going to be broken but good. Still, I waited for her to see what might happen. And so now when I stop, I'm given the 15 seconds, and then the my kind of muse takes over and it'll contribute some text to sort of complete it. And it's kind of like a back and forth. So I wrote still, I waited for her to see what might happen. It kind of caught me in the middle, so it did happened. So I can either mess with this or not. I mean, it's meant to be a flow state, but the timer's going. Cigarette ash falling like snow. I stayed standing in the rain, wishing I had a drink. Okay, let's see what it goes. She approached slow, heels clicking on the wet pavement. I could smell her perfume, cheap but deadly like a warning. So this is, this is very much meant to be just to Scott's point, like the kind of the artist way. If you guys that book from back in the early 90s, which kind of encouraged um I think that was the one that sort of got people talking about the morning pages idea. Just write, just write, just write, which is great. There are times when I'll kind of have that as a daily ritual. And this I thought was like, wait, is this the I don't know where we're at. Is this the Gen Z? Is that right? Is this the today's instance of that? So it's the opposite of like doing everything for you, right? Which is the concern nowadays that people are just going to give up on writing and just let the AI do it, which I think is a legitimate concern, I guess. And the New Yorker had a recent, I think it was the New Yorker had a recent article where they were talking to like some NYU students of all things. I'm pretty sure NYU or Columbia, who were like, "Why would I ever want to write?" And you're just kind of like that makes me that's total face palm kind of thing. Um, so that I think is genuinely unfortunate to even have that, and they're very kind of blunt about it. Um, what's in between? What suppose I enjoy the challenge of writing, but I want an exercise. Like I want my morning Pilates, but for writing. And kind of using the metaphors, the brain is like a muscle. Unless you use it, it's going to just kind of atrophy, which I think is actually, I think that there's enough science to say that that actually happens. That you can build up this ability to write in this mode and respond. And also, I like the idea of, I think what the timer does is it doesn't allow you to over think it. You're just meant to get into a flow state in a way, sort of with this. So that's pretty much what Vibrator is at this moment. Always like kind of iterating and kind of doing little variations of these different genres. The free writing one was kind of interesting because it makes you have to start. So I guess it maybe is, kind of switches the dynamics. So whatever you start writing, to the degree that whatever model you're connected to, it will kind of continue semantically contiguous sort of emanations back from it. And then these different lengths by which it might respond allow you to, play around. I don't know. I don't know what happens. You just play around with it. This instance of the whole Ghostwriter family of tools is quite new. So I'm still figuring it out. But I added this match user feature um, yesterday, which was like, oh, maybe you should match. It'll only give you back as much as you sort of put in, roughly, kind of doing an approximate sort of token count. Um, and that's it. My timer just went off.
That's super interesting, and that's actually pretty fun. It's kind of like improv of writing, but also like skill building, which is killer. It reminds me of going back to back, like in DJ sets, right? Two DJs, they each play a song back to back, and but you're doing this with, applying the same thing, but in another way, right? And to even further it, I start to think like, can you use this also to learn, right? Because it could also become like a conversational learning aspect of things, right? So you can free write and you can probably teach it on, let's say, biology, and then you start writing something about biology, and it's forcing you to read what it wrote, so you're going to digest what it says. But then what if those things is a fact that of biology, let's say if the topic is biology, right? So not only does it strengthen your writing, but then also it strengthens the idea of learning something new, possibly, right? If you wanted to use it down that route. But also like, yeah, there's so much that can come out of this. That's pretty killer. Yeah, I'm excited to ask about, hey, can I use it?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do it. And understand that that it might break, but let me know if it does.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's just a web app. So yeah, absolutely. I hadn't, because when I'm talking to people about it, or when I'm just writing my notes or writing it up, I submitted it I mean, it was a bit of a whim. I don't think I'm appropriate for it, but the BetaWorks AI camp. And I thought like, well, see what, just to kind of get it out there. But
Hmm.
I've been using the metaphor of trading fours, kind of call and response, but trading fours particularly in the jazz idiom,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is similar. And then, kind of you go back a bit, and then it is about call and response in in all kinds of idioms. And but I do like the idea of the DJ battle, and maybe even MC battles,
Yeah,
or
either way.
the kind of back and forth. I think is a that
Less,
that is definitely, that's a motivating aspect, and I think a kind of interface and
yeah,
interaction modality that I think is underutilized in the AI mode. That's the case I'm making when I'm trying to tell people like this is innovative. Um,
yeah.
the tool is simple, but the mode of interaction, rather than, hey, could you write this essay for me about such and so?
Yeah,
And if the AI said back, it's like, I'll get you started. I'll write the first paragraph, but that's all I'm going to give you.
yeah. It's less of a battle and more back to back,
Yeah.
right? It's more of like tit for tat. It's ping pong. Yeah.
Or like dancing together or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for that, Eastman.
I I really love it. It reminds me also of if you remember the TV show Quantum Leap, where like the guy gets dropped in totally in medias res into the middle of something and is kind of forced to respond to a situation that's very much underway already in a lot of places. He's like needing to kind of get the measure of it. But one of the things that that means is that you get the ability to rehearse and practice things that aren't accretive from the very beginning. And that's, you know, if you need to know how to do the whole thing all the way through, then you do need to do that. But having the opportunity to work on a specific part of writing or of the specific creative process, I think is a really interesting way of being able to kind of reflexively tune a different set of muscles essentially to what you get when you're just at the very beginning of something. And so I really like that. And it kind of reminds me of I don't know if folks have ever heard the discussion of the difference between training wheels, which teach kids actually maybe not the best part of or the hardest part of biking, because balance is kind of the hardest thing. So a balance bike versus a training wheels is this thing where you can actually like lop off different parts of the challenge. And so a balance bike is you're on your own for balance, but you're not pedaling. And between the two, you get everything. But being able to kind of switch out which of the pieces that you are under direct control over is a really interesting thing. And then the last thing as a reference is like life drawing exercises. You have these warm-ups where you're supposed to do these pretty garbage, pretty throwaway things for like 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute kind of things at the very beginning of it. And this seems like a really interesting and generative way for people to get those reflexive muscles kind of limber and rehearsed for the purposes of being able to do things. But at the same time, you have to start a life drawing sketch from scratch. Whereas with this, you can kind of start with a number of things already in place and work out how to fix something, or work out how to connect two ideas, or work out how to punch up a like a particular joke or whatever if you're a funny person. And so yeah, I love this specifically as a thing that is being able to kind of tee up and allow somebody to kind of respond and bounce off of in a way that that you sort of meat writing doesn't give you that direct opportunity for. So I think it's a really interesting inversion of that, to your point, Julian, that people are getting worse at this, but giving people and telling people to respond to it, I think, is a way of clawing some of that back and actually being able to use those tools to make us better.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Brandel. Just a quick reflection back. It's been in the back of my head to be able to maybe it's a variation. It's not the same kind of exercise tool, but somewhere in between this and Ghostwriter, which would be to say, here's something I want to write about, or I want to practice writing about, I guess is what I'm sort of wondering. Which I haven't really tried the free writing mode as much as the other ones, because I'm not really using it the way it's supposed to be using it, because I'm trying to build it and get it to work. So I'm focused on like debugging and all that kind of stuff. But the free writing thing, you sort of imagine that, or some variation of it. It's like, here's the theme I want to write about. The other thing, just to build on the notes about songwriting or whatever, I think it's totally interesting and possible. Also, one of the things that I value about this is that the expectation as to the quality is not as important, is can be low. I mean, this hard-boiled stuff is just like comical. It's kind of like I was walking down the alley and he stepped out and his 38 pointed right at me. It's totally cheesy but beautiful Elmore Leonard mass market pulp paperback kind of stuff, and that's okay. Like, people aren't gonna be like, that's really crappy. And it's like, yeah, of course it is, but that's not the point. The point is just to bang keys, punch little plastic squares to build up your muscles. Just like anyone, you walk into a CrossFit gym, it's like, why are you guys rolling those tires? I don't get it. That's stupid. When do you ever roll tires? You kind of thing. It's like, no, we're just working out. Matthias.
Yeah, nice to see the update on the project. I haven't tried it yet. I saw you need to log in for the web version, so I'm going to try that. One really immature thing, when you pronounce it, it sounds like you're saying vibrator. Is that, I'm not sure if that's on purpose, but a dash in between, maybe. I don't know why vibe writer. I was thinking if there's more seriously, I was thinking if there is one of the vibes, if there is a antagonistic mode, right? So try have the AI try to discern the style that you're writing in, and then try to force it in a different direction. It sounds like free writing, but always do the opposite of what I'm doing. If you start doing hard boiled, then okay, then someone does romance, or it starts doing romance, trying to like the opposite of the improvisation, yes, and it's gonna go no but, and force you to really lean into what you're trying to do. I mean, it's just a throwaway idea as well, right? But might force you to even more think about your language and writing style. Not just to get in the flow, but to get in a like think more about where you want the text to go, maybe, or your writing style to go. I don't know.
I was thinking because you have the subtitle Pilates. What's the and kind of what many people have said is, there's the reform. Well, there's like the routine of the reformer in Pilates or various types of movement, and I assume there's a philosophy, science, something behind why those ones are good to do, and if you do them this much, there will be this kind of improvement. And so I'm thinking, I mean, it feels so much like you. And I'm like, what part of your writing are you wanting to exercise? And then what kinds of routines, if you will, can you introduce in the tool? Like Matthias is saying, like is that the thing? Is it the tone you're responding to? The speed thing's interesting. So I'm curious what more of those kinds of um, constraints. I'm not sure even what the right word is, It's like the kinestheology, or however you say that word, for writing exercise. What would that be? Like, because it's for you right now, more or less. So what are the things that you wanna, what are your what are your writing fitness goals for the
Goals,
next
yeah.
year?
Yeah, that's really cool. That's interesting. I hadn't I don't know why it's Pilates. I just started saying it and just said, and sometimes I'll say like kettlebells. So from a branding perspective, probably needs some consideration and thought, like what really kind of would make sense to people or resonate. Funny, I gotta admit, it's like I, I I'm not sure I built this for me, to be honest. Like when I was doing it for the Ghostwriter, actually, I was like, oh, this would be cool. I think I could for a live event that I was helping produce, and I wanted like a carnivalesque kind of vibe to the event. And I thought this would be a fun game. If you call someone from the audience and be like, hey, who wants to try this? And I could just see a crowd being like, just going along with it and being like, oh, that's cool. It's like laughing at stuff or people getting panicked and kind of stumbling over. That's how I thought about it.
Okay.
Um, I know it sounds
That's totally different. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Uh, I think then it's more like it's some writerly version of your character, like on other people, because your quirky nature, the various things that you bring, right? You bring to things, you're bringing that to someone writing. So it feels like it fits within the imagine harder oeuvre of stuff. So then it seems like it's just a matter of like, well, what are the things that get in people's way? So it's the tone, or what I forget how you've named them. Vibe's the first one, then time, and then they didn't do what I expected based on your
okay.
labels, but neither here nor there. But I think there's something nice that this is there's an unexpected nature that it could just change on you and you don't know it. And it's for purposes of you trying different voices, expanding your range, something. Then it's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I couldn't help but just to continue thinking about how it could also be used as like a role-playing kind of conversational thing, right? You drop in the scenario that you want to have a conversation in, right? And it could be from breakups to business to science to teachers to whatever, and then you just have that conversation. And it, I guess, like at the end of the day, it's all about building the communication skill, right? It's building the quick thinking, fast, no blockage, and then just go, right? But what would happen if like you gave it to a kid that was shy and they were just, having a conversation to learning how to speak up or um yeah, or something like in that realm, right? It becomes more of like, or at least I start thinking about like role playing, right? They could try all these different scenarios, right? It could be from the point of view of like negotiation in a sense, right? Where it's like uh, I want to negotiate, or from a kid's standpoint, negotiate me going to the park and playing, right? And this is like a kid that's like 8 years old. Or fast forward, a 20-something-year-old trying to negotiate salary, for an example, or something, right? Just as a thought, as an additional thing that I keep hovering over after Pete Scott and Matthias. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce their name. Yeah, just that thought. Role playing, right? And conversational, because you can train it to on all these different subjects, right? Based off of what you input, and then it can kind of respond in all these different ways. But then this is forces you to kind of like respond. So it can respond from a story standpoint, or the new goal could be from a role playing or writing. So it has many chapters or many pages that you can go down through, or lanes, I should say. But yeah. That was my brain dump, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Thanks, Eastman. Anushka, and then we'll move on to Karis, who I'm super excited to hear from.
Yeah. Well, Eastman Point gave me a fantastic segue to talk about this project that a bunch of my friends made, where they made an escape room, but it was in the theme of like a true crime, or like like a crime scene where there was a story, there was certain suspects, and there was evidence lying around. So the interesting thing that they did was that they programmed the characters involved in the story with certain personas, and it was 3 to 4 different AIs that they gave these characteristics and fed in the story. And so you go and interact with these personas, and you have like a one-on-one conversation of where were you, like for example, where were you when this happened, or what were you up to at this time of the day, what is your job qualification. And it was like a conversation that you were having with each of these individual characters. And well, if you ask the right questions in the conversation, you get bits and pieces of evidence where you could get these evidences and piece out the entire story together and find out who the suspect was. So I feel like this could be a very interesting use of like one of the use cases of conversation, and using the vibe writer as well at the same time.
Thanks, Anushka. Vibe writer. Vibe writer. I'm just going to point out, I never heard it. I never heard it as a vibrator. I think that says more about people who heard that than it does my mispronunciation.
No.
Just saying. Just saying.
It made it worse when you said it slower too.
Oh, it did?
For some, yeah.
Vibe writer. Oh well, stuck. Okay, so third side project, Karis. You good to go?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I don't know if I'm good to go.
There you
I
are.
did something. That's all I can say. Let me find it. Okay, so this project started like yesterday. So there is a fund that's called the Next Narrative Africa Fund, and they are currently doing a pitch competition for movies from writers of African descent. So I don't know if this is the kind of projects are generally presented. So what I have
All right,
right now,
I'll just reassure you. It's just everything gets shared. So this is
okay.
I'm super excited about this.
Okay, so right now I just have I had an idea for the movie for a long time that I hadn't like really worked on. I have like something like I think 3,000 words where I've written the whole story. And right now I'm working on the application. So I have worked on refining the logline. I have a synopsis with the 8 sequences. So, and I have some elements of the world building that I want to share with you to have your feedback. So, there's the synopsis. I don't know if it's going to be too long to read it. Um, should I summarize it or can I just read it?
Well, so you get 10 minutes, so maybe summarize it would be best.
Okay, so the movie takes place in the near future, something like 5 or max 10 years from now in Gabon's capital, which is Libreville. For those who don't know, Gabon is a country from Central Africa, on the west coast of Africa, and the main character is he's a shopkeeper who sells um, high-tech security equipment to parents under the hood. Officially, it's like a bodega, and at some point, his equipment loses track of his daughter, and he finds out that the network he works with to as a vigilante cannot help him at the moment, so he has to embark on a journey, and he's going to use his own mostly his own abilities, but sometimes he has access to tech because sometimes there's a bit of internet network at some points in his journey, but mostly he's going to learn to he's going to have to find his daughter with less advanced tech, um, and eventually he's going to find his daughter, he's going to rescue her, but he's going to expose himself as a former criminal, and to protect himself he's going to um, let's say jeopardize an operation from his vigilante network, and justice won't be served at the end. So the why this story is interesting for us is because it talks about what happens when a certain technology um, becomes democratized in a certain context to the point where it transforms a society. And the technology I'm talking about is called the eye. So it's a kind of a spheric camera that it's able to film, to record videos in absolutely every direction. It's able to float, to fly, and no, not to float, to fly. Sorry, I'm French. I apologize for my English. It's able to fly, and it can follow a particular individual. In this case, it's a child. Like it protects a child using facial recognition, GPS tags, um, and of course AI that interprets like all the information, and that detects potential dangers to the child it's assigned to. And even in the story, even this technology loses track of our hero's daughter, but it's also instrumental in bringing the perpetrators to justice. And in this specific society, it poses problems with privacy, because like to watch over the kid, it needs to watch over everyone else around, because the data is not stored in the country, and it can be used for nefarious purposes. So there's going to be like kind of a legal battle where eventually the device is going to be outlawed, and every video that has been recorded by the device won't be admissible in court, and it will allow the bad guys to escape. I don't know how much time I still have. Other technologies that are that have become widely used in this society is an exoskeleton. I will find a better name for that, but basically, in Central Africa, it rains a lot, and there aren't a lot of roads. So either you try to build roads, and it costs a lot of money, or you try to buy big cars. Not everyone has that money, and or you augment people so that they are able to carry loads and stay safe in that environment. And so in both cases, technology comes to compensate for the lack of structure, like in the economy, for the lack of roads, the lack of security. And then another artifact I'm thinking about is called the Vicom. It's just a bracelet that bonds with the person who wears it, and that can only be used by that person. Again, for security reasons, because a lot of people used to get mugged because like the robber wanted to steal their phone, their cards, this kind of stuff. And this object that that has the ability to shapeshift, if I can say, and to bond to a single host, like it's not possible to reprogram it, kind of presents an alternative to that. And there's another one, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fashion designer. It's the ability to change the patterns of the fabrics that you wear. Actually, the exoskeleton comes with such a fabric that means that you can camouflage in the forest, and you can buy different designs and patterns, and your clothes or your bags, this kind of stuff. You can just change the patterns instead of buying different clothes, and it's more of a cultural thing. It's not really economic of security or security thing, but that's kind of, I'm building the word, and that's the things I've been thinking about. I think that's all. Are you there?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You came in right on time. Actually, another 42 seconds, but cool. That's a great, just to say, that's a great side project share. It's totally perfect. Fits totally with our vibe. So yeah, so any sort of thoughts and reflections? Does that
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what you need help on, but maybe with this group, it would be a helpful exercise. It's a little too Hollywood. This is more Julian's neighborhood, but like, when is it producers do this? It's like a rom-com meets a blah blah blah. Like the pitch.
Yeah,
It's like a
the cult.
father-daughter story set in an
Oh,
apocalyptic la la la. So I the log line. Oh, really? That's the word for it? Okay, maybe Dre is much better at asking this question than me, but like, I
It's
think
the
there's
thing you
some
read in the TV guide. If you
yeah,
remember TV guide, it was sort of,
yeah. Well, just like two sentence-y, three sentence thing. The images, the eye, the exoskeleton are beautiful artifacts. And I can imagine if that story is below those, just that, then I'm like, oh, I'm really curious what this story is. I don't need to know what those things are specifically, but if you just say it's a, father searching for his daughter, but then there's the crisis. Dre can speak to these terms better than me. Like the crux of the problem, and you don't say how it ends, but then I want to go hear that story. I don't know if that's what you want help on, or if it's
No, it
something
was
else.
more on the world building. Actually, the log line was, I didn't read it. Okay, that's too bad.
Okay, cool.
Where is it? So the log line was, Ahmed thought he'd paid for his crimes, but when his daughter disappears, he's thrust into a race that pulls him back to a past he tried to forget and threatens to destroy everything he's built. So that was the log line.
and I think just to add some color to Scott's remarks, I think what Scott was looking for was the slightly more, I don't know how you call it.
Pitch.
It's slightly more
The pitch,
dismissive
right.
pitch kind of thing, where it's like, oh, it's Crimson Tide meets, whatever, and you feel like, okay,
Okay.
gotcha. Very
Well,
Hollywood. Okay, that's it.
Sorry, it's my
Okay, it's a
lack of
concept.
education on the terms. What you just said was great.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called that. So, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's called the comps, and I haven't done it yet. Like I said, I started yesterday working on this application, and
Wow.
I only worked on the synopsis, the log line, and the themes, which I didn't talk about because it's not so much like there's talk of technology, but it's not so much about, yeah, it's about the world building actually, but it would have been too long actually. So yeah, so I'm going to do the comps. Exactly.
I love the world building aspect and just everything that you're doing. And I always look at it as like being thrust into a dark room with a flashlight. And then you turn on the light and you start discovering things. You start finding one artifact at a time. And over time you build a collection, and the collection ends up creating this world, which is really, really beautiful. And then my recommendation in terms of like synopsis and log line is I always write multiple, because there's always a bunch of reasons. Like I think the log line you wrote is like your classic log line, and then there's the one that Scott you were talking about. I don't know what that's called exactly, but
It's called comps.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah. Comparisons, yeah. Comps, yeah. So it's like I was just like I walked ballerina, right? It was like imagine John Wick as a woman, and you're like, okay, got it. I saw how that happened. But the other one is there's the really, really pithy log line that that I just know that, like, having worked in advertising for a long time, it's like 7-word maximum for like the highway billboard. And Steven Spielberg said it once, and he described E.T. as alien befriends boy to return home. And that was just like so if taking your log line, and if you could even just condense it to like no more than 7 words, that's always just a great option as well. And it forces you to really kind of focus in on like what the crux of your story is.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I assume that would help you with how you depict what's going on in the world. If that's part of what you want to discuss now, is like, how do you demonstrate the various things you described happening? It will depend on, like, kind of the way Dre was describing. Like, I mean, a lot of it's just your authorship. Like, what do you want to say about? I like Dre's example that it's a flashlight. Is it like that? Like, nothing is what it seems. So, I guess maybe you could describe your opinion, or something to better give us a sense of your commentary about the world we live in, that why you're making this piece in the first place.
Yeah, like my whole, how can I say it, imaginary enterprise, if I can say it, because that's not the only story I have started. Afrofuturist story is to help people of African descent realize that they already have the means and the ability, already have all the solutions to create prosperity in African systems. And in this specific movie, it's not that it's in the near future, but it's not very different from our time. You just have these, what I call human tech, which are ways of relating to each other in society that are way more developed than it's right now. Uh, Co-housing, for instance. There's a lot of community, cooperative. So, like I talked about the network, which are kind of vigilantes, internet and high-tech vigilantes. This is only one of the many networks that have been created in this society to how can I say, to provide for the needs of the people. And on the other side, there's the technology. We know that Africa has adopted mobile phones way faster than the rest of the world, and uh, people have invented mobile money, and we're using it like like a decade before the rest of the world started catching up. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want to show in this movie, to see these little technologies that are out of necessity, widely used in this context, uh, to the point where people don't realize how advanced it is, even in this context, compared to the rest of the world. So in one sense, I want to say you can do it. Like you just need, you've already proven that you can do it. Africa is the most productive continent when you compare to the context and the structure. Like if Africa had the same infrastructure, for instance, as Europe, like the productivity of Africa will be way higher, because they are able to be productive with a lot of no, a lack of resources and a lot of constraints. And that's kind of what I want to show. I want to make it visible. Like you're able to do amazing things. You already do amazing things, and it's not crazy to think that you can transform your system very soon. At the same time, I want to show that there is a limit to this, which is human nature, and the fact that the hero turns out to be a criminal himself. That basically everyone in this story has ulterior or bad motives, and it all comes crashing down at the end. It also shows that we don't have to just dream about this future of prosperity, because it won't be enough. We have things, we have like trauma, our own history, our own emotions we have to deal with if you want a prosperous future. Maybe I should write it down like that.
Well, I was like, is this
It's
recorded?
real.
Oh, yeah, it is. Good.
Recorded.
That was amazing what you
I'm gonna
just
jump
said.
in. It's okay to jump in. Sorry, I'm just late here. I love it. I think so what I came to my mind is like take him, but there's a twist that in terms of morality, like you said, everybody's kind of a bad person. Be interesting if the tech part, there's an AI or some sort of artificial intelligence in there in that surveillance stuff, but it becomes a morality. It becomes the source of morality for the story. It supersedes a human value system to something better, increases it somehow. I don't know. That just kind of came to my mind. So, but like a twist in there that's not expected. And then if you get that twist in your log line, then it makes it unique suddenly for you. So. But anyway, just something bouncing off you. Just came to me.
Sorry, but I basically say the opposite. That I want to demonstrate that no matter how advanced technology is, there will always be the limit of. We will always limit it, no matter what its
Yeah.
potential is. But that's a hypothesis. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
Well, it gives you the opportunity
Yeah.
to maybe make that contrast. Maybe the bot tries to have the morality play, but then that just increases the human depth, the capacity that's hidden. But it just occurred to me that would be the weird twist would be that the humans are all like mired down, and then somehow the AI helps them to rise up out of that. Anyway, just a thought.
Thanks for sharing.
2 cents.
I shared with you a Brazilian film, has a kind of similar storyline. It's called Bacurau, from just before COVID. Came out when I was there. And
Okay.
it has this a little bit of the same thing, that we are the problem. Like we have all this ingenuity, yet we constantly are getting in our own way. And the movie's really confusing what's going on for quite a while. But then when it's revealed, it's like, oh, like it's super potent. It's aligned. It's obviously different context, but I think what you've just said to us, if you haven't written down, is pretty fantastic in terms of your point of view. So I just want to reflect that back to you, that was really helpful to understand what you're trying to do with the film.
Thanks.
To echo something that Scott first started with, it's like I was, as soon as you showed the artifacts, then that kind of activated my imagination around the world. And people would know it's like I fetishize the artifact. I would, not that I wouldn't have the film, because I would, but also when I could feel myself when I watch the film, and be like, ooh, what's that? Or that's really beautiful that is there to help transport me into the world that you're imagining. And also, maybe juxtapositions that I think, situating it in Central Africa in some sense to me, and then unexpectedly seeing these things that have a certain kind of advancement to them that, usually in film you might see it with a brutalist building in the background. You're like, okay, I'm in some kind of future London or New York or San Francisco. I think that's so beautiful to kind of create that contrast, as if this is operating either, it might not, even seeing it might just be this sense that I'm in an adjacent now. This is a now that, a present that I'm not exposed to, or because of my situatedness in California, at this particular moment, I already have a kind of consciousness around where this stuff should be, or where I expect it to be. There was a film that this was kind of reminding me of. I can't remember what it was. Maybe was it called The Kitchen? Is there a film called The Kitchen? Which was a kind of sort of science fiction, social political thriller. I think I could be wrong, but it also reminded me of that. Like, I don't know how you describe it, where you see something that just for the viewer feels like out of place, because you're expecting it to be on a spaceship, 28,000 light years from Earth or whatever, but then to see it in someone's kitchen, or to see it, I think this is what my fetish of like wanting to do a bodega from the future. Like, I want to see tech as it might be, as we might experience it in a just like a normal, ordinary, everyday kind of thing, or like Anushka, like the extrapolation factory style work that you shared a few weeks ago.
If I can add something to that. So you made me think of Wakanda, and actually I started writing the idea. I had this idea way before Black Panther, the movie, way before I knew that there was a comic named Black Panther in the movie. But I think that yes, people expect African context to to be more frugal, if I can say. Um, to me, technology is not advancement. Like high tech is not necessarily advancement. I think it's better and more intelligent to be frugal, and to make an efficient use of your resources and your energy. But we have the models we have right now is Wakanda, or there is this Disney Plus series that came out. It's Iron Heart, I think, and I think those are bad examples of the relationship between African culture and technology, because Wakanda doesn't exist. It's supposed to be a very advanced nation, but at the same time, you have things in there in the movie that you feel like if you were that advanced, that wouldn't be there. And if you look at Ironheart, she's an engineer, but she's just copying something that someone already did. And I think there is a need and like a space for an African universe where technology is original, and it's not just a copy of something else or a fantasy, but it really it answers the problems of the people, and it would not feel out of place, in that sense.
Actually do it. It doesn't do anything. Oh, hold on, wait, here we go. It's gonna work. Takes a while. There we go. They're gonna work.
Well, go, Mark.
Oh, there we go. Well, it doesn't react to the hand on my end. That's the first time it's ever worked. Yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask about was exactly how Gabon actually appears as a character, because you're looking for like an amount of strangeness, right? If your audience is local, then you have to decide exactly how strange you're going to make it, right? Because if we're the audience, then there will be a certain strangeness to it, right? But if the audience is local, and I think that what kind of role the actual location plays as a character is really interesting to me. And I also, on a critique part, I worry about the AI generated objects because of the bias within those models. And so when I see the floating eye and I see the exoskeleton, I've seen those before. But they feel generic somewhat compared to where you're going with it, right? And so that would be the thing that gets me. I would like to know how it's like specifically situated, right?
Yeah, actually, I didn't intend to keep them. I just generated them to have a visual, but it doesn't look like what I had in mind. So you're absolutely right. What's going to feel strange for Gabonese people is the urbanism, and a good part of the architecture. Like I said last time, I'm a trained architect, and I also want people of African descent to imagine and project themselves in an architecture and urbanism that's typically African and sustainable, and able to create prosperity, what I call ecosystemic architecture. So for me, it's also a way to advertise for my architectural theories, and also the social organization. We have similar things right now. They call it tontine, which is kind of a microcredit community. I don't know how to say that in English, but there are also the tribes, the clans. I don't know how you say that in English, but these disappear from the story. So in this movie, the tribe is not as important. The network you belong to, and the co-housing neighborhood you belong to, and the trade you belong to are more important than tribe and clan, which is not the case right now. So those are two aspects that are strange. And another aspect that is strange is a relative democracy that there's in the in the story, because last time Gabon had democracy, it was a long time ago. So that would be the weird things. Colono no, I shouldn't try to say your name, but yeah, actually, there's an animist element in this story, which is that everybody believes that the kids are kidnapped by powerful people who want more power, because there is this thing. Actually, it's anchored in reality. 2-3 years ago, there was kind of a psychosis in Gabon and Cameroon because kids were kidnapped in every direction. And people suppose that it was because some people were doing some occult and magical rituals to have money and power and this kind of stuff. I don't hear much about it right now, but that's what started me on this journey of writing this story, actually.
Yeah, it jumped out at me when I was thinking of when I said Castaway was the model, like this object of this Wilson ball, as you know, it's irrelevant, but it opens up this person's ability to think about his surroundings in a way that, you know, reintegrates himself back into the society he's essentially become, you know, distanced from, in a metaphorical sense. And animism, I mean, the stories in the leaves and the trees and the dirt, like the horrible things you've referred to. Yeah, I think you almost want the story to kind of breathe out of the existing landscape, you know, and the character is just like an observer.
Mhm.
But you know, it's very interesting what you're working on.
And
Thanks.
I look forward to seeing the trailer.
Mhm. First, I need to be selected, and
Well, I'm just gonna say
I could do it before using maybe AI. I could do some fake videos.
I think you should do that, or you know, maybe don't get overburdened with trying to get the AI. You know, the text to video is fantastic, but it doesn't always do what you want. But even just like storyboarding it, but also so the kind of mythopoesis that you just described of the world, like all these elements, like is so generative. I mean, like I started really seeing it and feeling into it. And I, you know, everyone knows this is where I'm going to go. It's like I want to start seeing more of those artifacts. You know, I start thinking it's like actually, I'm not saying this is true, but this is just my, you know, immediate response. It's like actually, it's not a film. It's a collection of artifacts that are exhibited. And so maybe some of the artifacts are like text messages, people gossiping about what's going on. I'm not saying do this. I'm just saying I start wondering into the adjacent way in which the story you're trying to tell is told. I understand that it's a, you know, you're submitting an application for, so there's a real world also that you're trying to respond to. Um, you know, it's almost like I want to see like little snippets of, for some reason, I just see someone sitting down, you know, getting box braids and gossiping about what's going on in the world, you know, in just a neighborhood. I start seeing like little like posters or you know the kind of wheat paste posters up for different trade unions or trade clans or whatever they are, giving you a sense that actually the world is as you were describing it. You did it way better than I could, but that it's, you know, all the clan-based things that are oriented around what people do as opposed to who they belong to according to bloodlines or whatever it might be. This is what I was imagining when you're describing. I'm not saying I'm getting it right, but start seeing all those other elements of the world as well. Again, I just have to underscore, I'm not saying do this. I'm saying it was very generative to imagine what this world might feel like if I just got back, someone opened a box, like, look what I found. Like this came from this other world. Or, you know, historically it's like, yeah, we went back through the records and we found this thing. Everything that you described is so rich. And I think, you know, basically the job of the filmmaker is to take all that feeling and descriptions and say, like, I've got 112 minutes, you know, and I've only got a budget of like $18,000. How am I going to possibly tell this story?
Yes.
Beautiful.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that.
Actually, I've been actually, I've been thinking about the movie like that, and I've been asking myself this question, like, is it really a movie? So you're not alone with that question. And I've been seeing scenes or small scenes, and I don't yet know where they're going to be in the movie. I've been, yeah, scenes or interaction that can only happen in this world because this thing or this organization only happens in this world. So I agree
I
with
think
you.
that's a
That's a great
strong
idea.
instinct. I wouldn't ignore that.
Uh,
Maybe what else is it? And I'll just mention that you made me think of a there's a little niche press that's gotten a lot of attention lately called Fitzcarraldo Editions. Anyway, one of their books that they did that was a little bit hard to get is the premise of the book is that there was a researcher of some sort, academic researcher of some sort, that did this fantastic study, and they were seen, basically at the Central Library in Stockholm, working diligently on this thing, and sort of done, kind of know who this person was, but all their primary materials lost, all their writing materials lost. All that was left in the files were the footnotes for their work. So it's almost this inversion. You're trying to discern what they were writing about just from their footnotes. And I just love that conceit. It's very game-like, but literary at the same time. So, another element that is what you described just sort of made me think of. It's like, here's a possible way of getting, of avoiding having to do a whole film where everything fits perfectly and act one, act two, act three. It's just fragments. We lost the film, but all we have are like these dailies.
yeah.
And we're trying to figure out what the story is from these dailies, just fragments of it. Stuff like that just, gosh, makes me just want to only do that. Just how do you tell the story just from fragments?
I love that idea though, because I think when as a writer you're building those scenes in your mind, if that's how you're seeing it, that's I've been coached to see story, right? And then I love it. Just if you just take those scenes and try to capture those scenes wherever they are, you don't know where they're going to end up yet. Stephen King would start that way. He would write he'd have a situation in his mind, and then he'd start the characters, and then once he folded out the characters around it, he let them take it from there. He didn't know how it was going to end up. He didn't know how his stories would turn out. He doesn't even remember writing Cujo, but that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
this is anyway, I love that too. I mean, it would be complimentary. You'd have these clips of these scenes of people talking about something, and you have to kind of like what somebody went missing, or they're talking about this magic without any context necessarily, and then you start to kind of fill in the picture a little bit, or people start to use their mind or their imagination more so, because I think that's where Julian's going. You riff this whole approach is if you give them enough, then their imagination starts to fill in around that, and then
And what is it? How
yeah,
verite do you go? Are you like aware that you're actually watching dailies from a film? So it'd be like you hear the director like, could you, I mean, look, can we get the B shot now? Or is it from news footage? You know, like back when they used to, so that it's not a complete news report. I mean, you see these things sometimes in films where they're just having fun, where it'd be like, let me do that again, or something like that. Just, you ready? Give me a 3 count, and then I don't know. It's just, it makes it, to me, it makes it super fun.
Well, again, the pitch competition is it's about assessing the commercial potential. So I'm not going to go too crazy with that. But when you talk about news, I have this thing where when I imagine like a new product or a new startup, a new software, this kind of stuff. I also imagine, I've been doing that since I was a kid, actually. I would imagine an invention, and then I would imagine the ad for that. And I would play the ad with my sister. And so I do that in a way where I would think about a news article about certain, like a solution, and it explains the solution without really having to build it, but like he says, what it does to the society, what were the hurdles that the innovator had to overcome, this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna write. No, I'm not gonna write. I think it's recorded, but I'm gonna
Are
keep
you
all of
familiar
that
with
in
the
mind.
Karis? Are you familiar with the term diegetic artifact?
Sorry.
Diegetic artifacts. Have you seen that phrase used? Or there's a
No.
few research papers out there. I just finished my doctorate off, but in the piece I wrote in the middle of the doctorate, it was exactly that, using the diegesis to prototype an artifact and describe its use. And then you have the context, you have the ethnography, you have all these design things going on in the story. And then I'm going to try to present next week. But then you pull out that those artifacts as Julian was talking about. So I just played around with mixing the speculative fiction, describing those diegetic artifacts, and then try to pull them out in a slightly different adjacent reality. So playing with the boundaries of reality as well. Anyway, I'll try to present next week.
That makes me ask the question of, does the film take place at the time of the story? So Julian's like, no, it's just the outtakes or whatever. And then what Steve's saying makes me think, this could be much later. And we're learning about this thing that happened. And through these, like, anthropologists or somebody has come across something and are discovering this story that happened, right? That we're in the future of this story that you've told us about. So you can situate it. It doesn't have to be as it's happening. It could be in the future of that story. And then that lends you different ways to tell it.
Yeah, it also doesn't have to be consistently one or the other, right? If it's a mystery of some kind and you're asking the audience to put together the fragments, they can happen at different times, and you can still tell the story that way, right? Also, I just wanted to add, I'm also an architect by training. And so for me, where Julian goes to the smaller kind of objects, I'm also really interested in the boundaries between the interiority and the exteriority of what's happening. You're talking about this kind of this belonging, right? And so you have these, this interiority, both physical and kind of metaphorical. I belong to this, but also there will be a boundary between the physical interiority and the kind of exteriority that I think is really interesting and where this is going. I'm fascinated by the way the context will play here. I think it's really rich. It sounds really great.
I don't know how much time we have, but quickly, you can check out Masoudi Alabi Fasasi, who wrote Cosmo Architecture, which is kind of, I see Scott nodding, so you know who I'm talking about.
No, but the concept, and you mentioned something else before, and I thought of Francis Kere, and I'm an architect also, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, he kind of did an anthology of traditional forms of African architecture. And that's funny because I read it as I was writing a report on Francis Kere. And I realized that, like, subconsciously, I had been using these principles of ancestral African architecture in my own projects.
Yeah.
And so there is a specific formality where a house is not really a house, is an agglomeration of rooms that are kind of floating in a like a spatial magma. And the room is going to be it's going to be very dark and kind of constraint. Is going to be a minimal space. And then you're going to share a lot of space with the community, the rest of the family. The concept of a villa or house, like we know it, doesn't really exist. It's like rooms floating in a compound and sharing a common space.
I mean, David Atjay's Instagram feed is this kind of thing. Well, I just looked, it's between photos of him and then this kind of history that most society doesn't know about, of architecture, urbanity, etc. So that all sounds fantastic, what you're saying.
And when you're outside of the interiority, you're in danger, right? Is one of the things that's really interesting about it, right? There's that.
No, not actually, because there is the interiority, that a small room, there is the common space, but that's still enclosed. There
No,
is an
I see
exterior
you.
state.
Yeah, but beyond that boundary,
Oh
beyond
yeah.
beyond the agglomeration, when you're moving from one interior space to the other, and that's what I think ties into the narrative somewhat, right? If this is a narrative around moving from one place to the other, there's a point where you're kind of like exposed as you go from one place to the other. And so these kind of, right? And so that's where the benefit of the interiority is the safety, right? Whether that's part of the guild or so it's a political safety or it's a physical safety or something like that. And so when I look at the exoskeleton, you're looking at a kind of a different, like a certain level of exposure being out in that context. Anyway, sorry, yeah, it's just the yeah.
I was thinking I know you generated a couple of the images just to kind of get the idea out. But as an idea, when we were talking about animism, was same but different. Um, Taking inspiration from nature in order to represent these these key points or these key things within the movie. So, for an example, instead of the eye being a literal eye and kind of like in this round shape, taking the idea of like, you know, a hummingbird, right? A hummingbird is able to kind of just like stay in place and then follow move, right? So then does the eye become something similar to a hummingbird, right? It's long beak, and maybe that long beak is its thing, and it looks like a stick that's just hovering around or something. And it comes down to like the exo, um, the skin that a reptile sheds, right? Is it like something as translucent where to the point where it doesn't even look like it's something so different, but it that looks so jarring, but it's something that's so subtle that it is an exo skin, similar to like skin peeling in a sense, right? The translucent, the slight texture of the skin of the snake and such, right? And that is what goes around the person, right? And it, and if you get like somewhat creative with it, taking influences of like iridescent a little bit, right? So there's like a slight shimmer so that one knows, oh, this person has an exo, but it's blended in so it's blended in so much that you can kind of tell, but you can't really tell. And then does that play a part in your story where you can't tell if certain people have extra skin unless if you're really paying attention, right? Small details, but it was just kind of like a brain dump, something that I was thinking in the background. Um, I can help you generate some images if you want, and generate some motion stuff because I'm currently also working on a short film just for the sake of making something up. And it's same but different, but way different though, not similar concept, but yeah, extending a helping hand if you want. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very kind.
Cool.
I have ideas on that, but I think it's the end, so I'm not going to add anything.
How are we gonna I mean, if you want, I'd be super, I would like to follow along and see how things develop.
Yeah.
It's mainly going to be writing right now. I think it's going to be writing tonight. I need to finish a little a micro executive summary to send it to my uncle, who's actually a famous how do you say it? Movie director in Cameroon. So I'll have a lot of writing, and I'll also try to contact other directors who can to see if they're interested. I would eventually get to work on the artifacts again, but right now I just needed to have an idea. And yeah, maybe I can share with you some principles in my world building as it evolves.
That would be great. And definitely, I mean, what I meant was like, just stay in touch, basically.
Okay.
Is there a blog that you're going to be writing updates to? Hold you accountable?
No, but
Very cool.
I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna think about how I'm going to share that, because it's good to have accountability. I'm alone in that. Like, there are like 2-3 people who know that I'm working on it, and I'm supposed to submit it before the 1st of August. So it's good to have some accountability. So I'm going to think about how I'm going to share it. Maybe I'm going to share my Instagram. There's nothing on there right now, but so we can talk.
Cool. I think so. I think we're wrapped. Thanks, everyone. That was great. Great shares.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julian, for getting the group together.
Yeah, the best way to end the week. All right. Well, thanks everyone for showing up, and we'll see you on the Discord. See you next time.
Actually, I'm not on the Discord. Is it is it for paying patrons?
Send me email. Do you have my email address?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, send me an email. I'll send you an invite.
Okay. Cool.
All right, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.